striker, but I could hit it decent enough. But once or twice per round, I'd get an OB ball, and I make a double or a triple twice per round. You're gonna shoot 78 pretty quick. When I got my first teaching job over at General Old Golf Course, that golf course was extremely wide open and had a lot of range time. So I could work on whatever move I wanted, and I could hit some of them really well. But I wasn't really like hard on myself if I missed, because there was no trouble. Once I came here to Canyon Crest, and if you guys have been here, there's trouble on both sides of most of the holes. My first round, I think I shot like 38 on the front nine. I was like, oh, it's not too hard of a golf course. Once I hit my first ball OB, it progressively got worse until like 1 year later, I'd say I had the yips with the swing. Even on par threes, I'd miss it by like 40 or 50 yards. I'd miss the green. Now my swing would look good on the range, and I could like give the perception that I was hitting good shots on the range, but I'd really be missing targets by quite a bit. I thought, oh, I just need to play more. Like in college, I played all the time, so I thought I need to play more golf, and that didn't help. I shot like 90 with members. Now, a lot of people are really hard on us teaching professionals because, we're not tour players and stuff like that. Now, you could be a good player, and then when you lose kind of your swing, like to where you're blocking it 45 degrees right, you can shoot some pretty high scores, and it can get kind of depressing to even try a full effort out there. So I really tried to figure it out and figure out why I was doing it, and because I knew it wasn't mental. Like, I wasn't nervous. I was just hitting it OB. I'd hit really good shots, and then the next hole I'd OB triple. So you go par, birdie, triple. I mean, if you do that the whole round, it's going to be really hard. So that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I really see that to be the difference between good players and used to be good players, especially college players. You might not realize it yet, but when the swing gets into that home block position, you're fighting it. That block or that hook could come at any time, and it's going to be a high number when that comes. Now, let me show you what it is. It's really from Sasha McKenzie's work that I kind of was able to understand it. But what he said, and I found his journal article when I was in college, and then I've kind of chased his videos around the internet, and then went and saw him at Coach Camp. So again, Sasha, if you're watching this, I'm your biggest fan. You already know that because I asked for your autograph once. Okay, so the home block is when the club gets over, and then when that arm goes forward, when it's in this position, the club turned backwards. His experiment, they had this model, and they turned everything on full power, thinking it would just go left. But what happened is when it got here, it kicked backwards to where it's wide open. Okay, now there's two things about that. When that happens, that club gets extremely vertical and extremely open. Now, people can hit a successful shot, but they're going to have to jump so they don't chunk it and twist hard. And you're going to see this at impact, and I know you've seen this out of people. All right, now, the opposite of that is this kind of shallowing craze where it gets into here and then it fires around. Now, I've seen people try really hard to shallow it, and then they still just end up getting stuck. So I wish I could say there's a simple fix for the home block. I'm just saying, if you have it and you're struggling with that problem, you have to isolate that and figure out how to fix that feel. Now, I have different ways of fixing it, but I'll be honest, and I say I can't fix it with every single player. If I did, that'd be great, and that's what I'm trying to do. And hopefully by a year from now, I'll have an updated video saying I know how to fix this problem. The best ways I've seen to fix it so far are the on the knees drill. This one's a favorite because if you do that home block, you'll hit back here. So if you're doing this, you're going to have to swing around, and I'll call it toe up, around to toe up, like that. So if you hit one from your knees, it'll go left because of the lie angle, by the way. You do that same thing, but you try to get down. Now, my reasoning for that being successful is, and typically junior golfers won't struggle with this too much, but my belief is that they're looking at the ball from this kind of lower angle. And when you look at it from that angle, it would not be instinctive to do this. It'd be more instinctive to drop it and go around. So I like that on the knees drill. And then you just picture yourself getting lower and doing the same swing. And that'll typically get rid of that hum block. So far, that's the best way I know. Another good one, I have some crazy ones, but is to learn to circle the club in like this. Like I'll have people like right around the camera, I'll draw a circle and then whip it through. Don't be afraid to turn your wrist like that. Some people really fight that, but I've noticed that the way that the good swings work, typically this movement here, where people see that supination, is actually happening kind of eccentrically, not concentrically. Concentric meaning you're forcing it to happen. Typically that gets it over. It looks like it's more eccentric, like the club is just, I'll do it with 2 fingers, people will see it that way. See how the club's whipping around? Now if I attach my left hand to that, it's going to supinate. Not because of the left hand, but because of that action. So you can see that there. That's my only beef with people doing this first, is I think they're probably gonna, I think this happens eccentrically, not concentrically. Concentric is like when you're doing a pull-up and you're pulling upward, that's concentric. Eccentric is when you're using the same muscles, the lats, but you're letting it go down real slow. It's the same muscle group firing, but a different look. So I don't think this is firing to hit a good shot. I think it's kind of like being led into that position. Guys who didn't struggle with the home block are guys like Sam Snead. You see in his writings, like the club was always fast. Like people always talked about how fast his club was and how like smooth it looked like he swung. And if he struggled with anything, it was at smother left. But he said once he got that Uzette driver, and he was also aware that the club face was where the ball was going, he didn't notice that his club came in super closed. Once he noticed that, he was able to fix it, and his only swing thought was keep the club square through the ball and just keep it square the whole time instead of letting it flip over. Now, a guy that can play golf like that obviously has the club doing what I call the opposite of a home block, which is that auto squaring, where the club just seems to square naturally. So he's the one we could look at. All those good players are. And back then, they didn't have the camera to look at the swing, so they just did it by feel. And they called it that release, and they could really feel that release. And to feel that release, you got to get it more off plane. If you're too on plane, you won't feel anything. Now, could that be the video camera getting in the way a little bit? Possibly. I mean, everyone tries to get extremely on plane, and when you're on plane, it's harder to feel those movements. And we could look, like if you took all the swings from before the video camera and then all the swings from after the video camera, you're definitely going to see a difference. But you're still going to see those guys on tour that still have that those classic looks. And those classic looks, I believe, and I think others will agree, is just the club squaring. The more like modern you get it to look, the less that club's going to be actively squaring. And I'm big into that actively squaring. So we want to feel that. And then you just keep the club square through the ball. Now that went a little left, but it's definitely not going to be my hum block. My hum block used to be like this. Oh, I remember it well. Your hands would drop inside. You go like this, and you'd look like this. A lot of effort for nothing.